The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, by Washington Irving. Part 1, The Enchanted Valley. In the secluded glen known as Sleepy Hollow, nestled within a quiet, dreamy stretch of land near the banks of the broad Hudson River, there lay a valley unlike any other in the American countryside. It was not merely a geographical location, but a place infused with such spectral charm and hypnotic tranquility that even time itself seemed to move more slowly through it. The rustling leaves, the soft hum of insects, and the gentle creak of aged tree limbs created a constant, low lullaby that drifted through the air like a forgotten melody. The inhabitants of this mystic hollow believed, with an almost religious certainty, that the land was bewitched. Tales passed down through generations spoke of ghosts who walked the forests, of strange lights that hovered above the fields at night, and of whispering voices heard in the breeze. Though many of these tales were told with an air of amusement and theatricality, none of the locals doubted their truth in the stillness of the late hours. Among these stories, one stood above the rest, a tale known far beyond the boundaries of the hollow. It was the story of a ghostly horseman, a figure cloaked in shadow and mystery, who roamed the countryside after dark. He was known only as the Headless Horseman, said to be the restless spirit of a Hessian soldier whose head was taken by a cannonball during the Revolutionary War. According to legend, he could still be seen riding through the winding roads at night, desperately searching for his missing head. Sleepy Hollow, with its quaint farmhouses, sleepy-eyed fields, and winding brooks, wore its haunting identity like a second skin. Even the broad daylight couldn't quite dispel the heavy atmosphere that hung over the region. It was as if the entire valley existed halfway between the waking world and some deeper, more magical realm just beyond the reach of understanding. Into this realm of spectral traditions and provincial folklore came a man by the name of Ichabod Crane. The arrival of Ichabod Crane. Ichabod was a man of curious proportions, tall and exceedingly lanky, with narrow shoulders, long limbs, and feet that seemed too large for the rest of him. His head was small and flat at the top, with large ears that flared slightly outward and a long nose that gave him a resemblance to a scarecrow come to life. But despite his odd appearance, Ichabod carried himself with great dignity and a certain self-satisfied grace that suggested he believed himself to be quite charming. He arrived in Sleepy Hollow to take on the humble position of schoolmaster, a role he embraced with enthusiasm and rigor. His schoolhouse was a simple structure, perched beside a quiet brook and shaded by trees that seemed to lean in curiously, as if to watch over the lessons being taught within. Ichabod ruled his classroom with strict discipline, but not cruelty. He prided himself on his knowledge of scripture, arithmetic, and penmanship, and in his own mind, there was no scholar greater than himself within 100 miles. Despite his modest salary, Ichabod managed to live comfortably by making himself agreeable to the local families. He would help farmers with light chores, assist housewives with errands, and often volunteered to watch over children in exchange for meals and lodging. In this way, he became a fixture in nearly every household in the hollow, weaving himself into the community like a needle through cloth. What truly set Ichabod apart, however, was his imagination. He was an avid reader of ghost stories and folk tales, and he devoured every account of witchcraft, hauntings, and supernatural encounters he could find. He would often spend evenings listening to the tales of the local Dutch wives, his wide eyes gleaming in the candlelight as they spoke of phantom ships, haunted glens, and devilish pacts made beneath the full moon. Though Ichabod was fascinated by these tales, they also stirred a deep unease in him. On his long, solitary walks back to his lodging, often lit only by the dim glow of moonlight through the trees, his mind would conjure horrors from the shadows. Every snapping twig or fluttering leaf was a potential specter, every owl's cry a warning of things beyond the veil. Yet, he returned again and again for more stories, like a moth drawn to a flame it fears and desires in equal measure. A not-so-humble ambition. Ichabod's aspirations went far beyond the schoolhouse walls. While he maintained the modest manner expected of a schoolmaster, in his heart he dreamed of a greater fortune, a comfortable estate, a position of influence, and perhaps even a family of his own. It was with these ambitions in mind that his attention soon turned toward Katrina Van Tassel, the only daughter of the wealthy farmer Baltus Van Tassel. Katrina was a blooming young woman of 18, with rosy cheeks, a mischievous smile, and an air of self-confidence that bordered on flirtatious. She was the apple of her father's eye and the object of desire for many young men in the Hollow, not only for her beauty but for the fortune she was likely to inherit. Ichabod, with his sharp mind and bold imagination, saw in Katrina not just a romantic conquest, but the key to achieving all his dreams. He began to court her with the subtle cunning of a man who fancied himself clever. He sang to her with a tremulous tenor, read poetry at social gatherings, and praised her dress and demeanor in flowery language. Katrina, who was well aware of her effect on men, entertained Ichabod's attentions with amused detachment. She liked the attention, perhaps, but whether she returned his feelings was a mystery Ichabod could not solve. Standing in the path of Ichabod's grand designs, however, was a formidable rival. Enter Brom Bones. Abraham Van Brunt, known to all as Brom Bones, was the very opposite of Ichabod in both body and spirit. Broad-shouldered, brawny, and full of mirth, Brom was the leader of a group of local pranksters and known for his strength, horsemanship, and fearless nature. He laughed heartily, fought fiercely, and rode his great black horse with the daring of a highwayman from legend. Brom, too, had his sights set on Katrina, and unlike Ichabod, he had the advantage of long-standing familiarity, as well as a reputation that drew admiration rather than ridicule. While Ichabod relied on poetry and compliments, Brom wooed Katrina with confidence and charm. Yet, she did not immediately choose between the two, instead seeming to enjoy the rivalry playing out between them. Ichabod, for all his learning and pride, could not bring himself to confront Brom directly. Instead, he attempted to outwit his rival through gallantry, refinement, and cunning. Brom, amused by Ichabod's efforts, began to play pranks on the hapless schoolmaster, greasing his saddle, frightening him with ghostly noises, and generally making a fool of him before the townsfolk. But Ichabod pressed on, fueled by a vision of future wealth and status that blinded him to the rising danger that surrounded his courtship.